Once Chinese President Xi Jinping said, China will always remain the builder of world peace, a contributor to global development and international order. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Nazmul Islam. Today you are watching our program on natural civilization at Natural TV. Today we will talk on the China and its politics, history, culture, economy. Especially we know that China is now the rising country, and this country is one of the most effective country from economic background, from political background, from defense background, even that's what we should mention from the trade and business. As you see today, we have our guest from Bosphorus Asian Research Center, BAM. We have Dr. Hashim Turkar, and we have also Mustafa Aydoğan. Welcome to our program Natural Civilization.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Before going to our discussion, I would like to ask you about the BAM. That's what established in Turkey. Could you please tell us, like, what do you mean? What your object to build this organization, research organization? Why you think that in Turkey it is important to make a relation with China, and what's the actual purpose of this organization?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting us to your newly started program. And BAM, it's an acronym for the Turkish of Bosphorus Center for Asian Studies. It has been founded in Ankara last year, actually, and now we are studying Chinese-related issues, especially all the Pacific, Asia-Pacific or Indo-Pacific region we are interested in. But we look into the all international politics and studies through the Chinese perspective, not Chinese perspective, but we put China in the center, actually, because China is rising, is a rising power, and nobody can be away from China or Asia Pacific nowadays in the international politics.
Exactly, that's really good things there in Turkey. You are, if I'm not wrong, it's a really rare case to see Turkey. They are working for Asian issue, and thus you are working especially on China and this Asian Pacific issue. But we see that now world is facing some problem from Chinese part, as what we can say like China and American issue, China and what we see like trade war, and also the new Cold War. So I would like to ask Dr. Turkar about this issue. How do you see, this kind of issue with the China and American problems? Is it shows like it's a new Cold War?
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's my the subject of my doctoral thesis,
okay.
And it's been published in late January this year toward the new Cold War. It's in Turkish. China is rising. To some analysts, actually China is returning, because in 19th century and early 20th century, if we can put aside these periods, China was always in the center of the international politics. And now, especially after 1978, Deng Xiaoping started the open up and reformation policy. Mm-hmm. And since then, China is rising continually, and it's a constant issue in international politics. From the economic perspective, because the hallmark of Chinese rise is economics. And in 1980s, Chinese economy was only $150 billion economy. Exactly. Now it's $12 trillion economy, and it's between 1990s during post-Cold period and until last year, it grew by 10% every year. Only the last year 6.6% was the economic growth, but it was the dominant economic power in the world. The global economic growth in terms of global economic growth and in terms of Asia Pacific economic growth. During that period, the economies in Asia Pacific has grown 2% and more than 2%, and as far as I told, China has grew 10%, and the average growth in global economy was only 1.5%. When considering this huge difference between the economies of Asia Pacific and Western economies and the other side of the other remaining parts of the world, Chinese economic boom is incredible. So everyone should consider China as an...
Actually, from especially from last 10 years, it really clearly shows China is really uprising and China's economy is emerging. And it's not actually emerging, it's almost, I mean, occupied the second level of economy, and within more than 10 years, as we know, this scholars said or academicians say that within 2030 China will be a number first in economic sector. So it shows actually it's really trade for superpower, what we mean like USA, I mean, and the recent issue like the Huawei issue, even the recent trade war last we can say the 1 year's the problem, it shows USA take them as threat rather than as opportunity, what we see maybe 5 years ago. Even also I am using like a Huawei, and I was thinking like about how this kind of problem is rising, and how do you think like it can be resolved, and what will be the possible solution? I mean, do you think any solution will happen, or it will be actually continuous process for China and US?
Actually, it contributes the global economy actually, because in a capitalist system and the growth is required. Without growth there will be no capitalist system. Actually China has a different economic system. It's a state-based capitalism, or capitalism with characteristic, with Chinese characteristic, they say. Actually yes. For you talk about the Huawei issue, for example. Huawei is the second top mobile phone seller in the world. Just after the Samsung, it comes the Huawei, and actually it's the top infrastructure provider, telecommunication infrastructure provider in the world.
Even they have a great future. I mean, like they can be at the first one.
They need the 5G, for example, 5G technology, and they provide the infrastructure for internet underwater cables, for example. And for US is approaching China's rise with some hesitation actually. The US...
But could we say like last 5 years China's rise, USA take it as an opportunity? China, I mean, USA do it some good business with China. USA give them opportunity, okay, come and make a, I mean, what we say, the globalized business, globalized trade. They give opportunity. But now when they understand, like, okay, it should be stopped. It's now suppress our economy, suppress our defense system, suppress our technology. I mean, do you agree with this statement, or do you have some different opinion?
Actually, it's the result of the Trump's America First policy, and Trump is approaching not only to China with this in this way, the other side, even to their allies, in Western allies, for example. And for example, at the beginning of this week, he visited Japan, and here the US is negotiating a trade agreement with Japan as well, and it's not going well. It's not going well. It's not going well with the Western European countries, for example. It's not the China is not the exception in terms of Trump administration's economic policies.
Even we see like British, they accept 5G.
Yes.
I mean, from China. What US tried to say that okay, our alliance should not accept this, but they didn't take like a direct statement. But in some extent, they try to say okay, don't take Chinese offer, but already their first ally, we can say the British, England, they already accepted the 5G. By the way, I have one question to I mean, you're working as a senior researcher in Bosch Research Center for Asian Studies, BAM. And as I know, you were focusing on China and Turkey relations.
Yeah.
So, could you please tell us, like, how do you see, I mean, the past of China-Turkey relation and the current situation and the future, especially from the strategical way? I would like to ask you, especially like China, as we know that China has a great strategy. That's what we say, the Belt and Road Initiative, and they have a one road. I mean, that's a policy, BRI policy towards West Asia and Eurasia. And Turkey is really strategic and very most important country. So, how do you see? I mean, is Turkey taking it as an opportunity, or they are thinking in different way?
Thank you. First of all, thank you to Natural TV family for hosting us here. Okay. And I think relations between Turkey and China has been fluctuating in many fields. If you take the situation in a political way, they both countries recognized each other in the 1975, and afterwards the relations began to be grown and developed. And as you can know, the situation and the relations between those countries in 1970, before 1970, 1980s, they were in a close structure in both economical and strategical way, in a political way, because the China was a communist country, you know, exactly. And not just the political, in various ways they were implementing communist politics. When we compare with today's politics. Exactly. And when we come to Turkey at that time, Turkey also was a close structured country in a political way and also economically. And after the 24 January considerations taken in the hand in 1980s in the Turkey, Turkey began to open up its gates throughout the world as much as China. And the relations between those countries began to develop, but still I think there are vagueness in these relations, whether to develop it, whether to step upon this position. So, but this initiative, or what we call Belt and Road Initiative, could be a beneficial instrument for both countries in the coming future.
Even as I know, like, China, they have a huge market. I mean, in relation with Pakistan, they have a one project, CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The last time, Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan said, I mean, he called to Turkey like to join the CPEC. So, like, how do you see? Is it actually a good option for Turkey? I mean, is it also good opportunity, especially from a strategic way?
Maybe we should tell several words about BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. It's in Chinese. It's Yidai Yilu, one belt, one road. A belt refers to the infrastructure and roads and railroads from China through the Western Europe on the ground, and road means the maritime road from China through the South China Sea, Indian Ocean, and through the Mediterranean to Western Europe. Actually, it's been initiated in 2013 actually. And Xi Jinping declared the BRI, the Yidai Yilu or Belt and Road Initiative in Kazakhstan in 2013, and from then on everything has changed for the region, for the world, for the Europe, and everywhere in the world has been influenced by this project. It's a bit different project. It's not a holistic project actually. It's working with bilateral agreements. China on one side and the countries on the other side, but the only one country. From that perspective, some older countries are hesitating to join the initiative, because in case of any problem they will be confronted with China on their own, and it's intimidating to some degree.
You know, there's like Xi Jinping when he initiated this strategy BRI projects in some countries, he said like it's a one kind of Chinese peaceful rise. They would try to mean it like we don't have any object to change the political ideology of other country. we don't have a object to interfere in other countries.
Yeah.
So like till now, from 2030 to now 2019, do you see like is it still actually peaceful rise, or there is something actually what some scholars, especially from Western side, like they try to mean Chinese projects, Chinese strategies, one kind of imperialist idea or agenda. How do you see these things?
Actually, I think this situation is related with this situation has to be taken in the hand with the foreign policy is implemented on the Chinese side. They call it active pragmatism. They are approaching to the especially medium size and small size states with an active pragmatism foreign policy. What is that? It is just closing those countries by prospecting with commitments of prospective future and developmental prospects. Regarding that, it gets answer from those countries actually. But when we see the US side, they are closing countries, okay, both economically, but more insecurity, especially in the Middle Asia, we can say that, and Middle East also. So I think this is a crucial point that distinguishes between China and US politics upon this case.
But like you were working from Turkey, to see how the China-Turkey relations. So specifically from technology and defense, like do you see any good future for Turkey to make a good relations with China, rather than to move their policy from west to east, something like, do you think that there is some future for Turkey?
As you indicated, Turkey is a very crucial country because of thanks to its geopolitical position, and Turkey is not in an idle position. I think as much as we think that it's idle and has to develop this process much. And if I'm not wrong, Turkey has built a railway line with its partners, and through the end of the 2017, which is called Baku, Tiflis and Kars railway line, and it is very crucial project for this project, because in the OBOR project it is called Middle Corridor, and China has been trying to synchronize Turkey with the project by using this method, this concept, the Middle Corridor. But as we know, this is not much developed right now. So in the coming future, I think it's going to be much beneficial for Turkish economy and both Chinese economy to transport these goods from east side of the world and the west side of the world.
Make a balance. Turkey has really that
Actually, there are 6 corridors within the BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. CPEC, for example, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is one of them, and Middle Corridor is another one. Actually, we can't, as Turkey, we can't stay outside of this project, because we have a very central position. When you look at the map of BRI, you see in the center, you see Turkey actually, from both ways actually, from the belt, from the ground, and from the sea actually, the road. The road is very important because it follows the maritime roads and maritime choking points, and in this respect, China has established its first military base outside China in Djibouti. And in 2017, Djibouti.
Okay, before going to the China-Africa issues, I want to ask you one more thing, because we are talking about China and Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, or One Belt, One Road, or Chinese Silk Road, Chinese Maritime Road Initiative. So those kind of initiatives, the academic literature said like it's a debt trap, because China is giving loan to the small countries like Sri Lanka, as we see, or like Pakistan also some other countries, they are giving loan, and it shows it's a one kind of debt crisis, and it will be huge challenge for those countries to feed back their money. So how do you think, is it really debt crisis, or China they have a really backup system?
Actually, to some extent, it's true, because as far as you know, there were two Belt and Road Initiative, Belt and Road forums. First in 2017, and the second one was held in this year, late April, in Peking, in Beijing, and actually in his talk and in his address, keynote address, Xi Jinping has accepted to some degree, actually, because he talked about the debt trap, and he defended. He tried to defend it. Then you understand there is a real concern about debt trap, especially for the smaller countries, and he vowed to correct some shortfalls, some deficiencies in Belt and Road Initiative. And as far as I know, they try. That China will have to construct a different construction for the BRI, because now it's, as I said, it's a bilateral. It's constructed with bilateral agreements.
Exactly.
For example, if a smaller country has a problem with China or with BRI or for the loans, to where it will consult, which law will be valid.
I have a question to Mr. Mustafa. Like China is Turkey's middle position, as we understand from whatever their project style or strategy style, even from the map it shows. Even in Europe, they have good initiatives in Italy. If you are follow up these things, like how do you think that China is trying to go now beyond? Their eastern project. They are trying to enter Turkey, and now they are going to also Italy, and they have a plan to some more European countries like Poland, Portugal, or those kind of steps. Like if you are following up this, how do you see like those kind of initiatives of China in Europe?
I think this is again, we come to the point. This depends on the Turkish foreign policy. Indeed, I think. Yeah, we know China has been thriving and China has been opening its gates toward Europe, but as much as China is willing, this candidate partners, let's put that way, should be willing to join this initiative. So Italy shows some eagerness about joining these initiatives, but we don't see this eagerness and willingness in other countries as much as we see in Italy. And I think this situation is much dependent on in this situation, I think.
So I have a more question to Dr. Hashim Turkar about Chinese, because China, as Western scholar from Western side, they say China is now occupying Africa. According to them, it's they are going to that kind of lands as their imperialistic idea. But as we see, like they're changing actually Africa. So how do you see like the Chinese project and Chinese policy towards Africa? Do you think like is it sustainable, or there is some future? And Chinese policy, it is not actually showing that they have a target to control or to occupy the land of Africa. That's what African nations they have experienced in past from Western countries.
Actually, China is the top trade partner of more than 100 countries in the world, and African countries are not exception. And maybe Africa is the hallmark of Chinese growth, Chinese foreign policy, and Chinese influence. And the African countries are really willing to work with China in every aspect of economical ecosystem, actually. And we see that Africa is also a part of Belt and Road Initiative to some degree, and it develops in African continent. And as I said, Djibouti, for example, is the first overseas military base of China. And considering China has always actually criticized other big powers, superpowers, to intervene the other countries' relations, and it always hesitates and didn't want any.
Some days ago we saw like there is some news. It shows China they are I mean some China is offering Turkey to work together in Africa. I mean
Yes.
some
For construction.
yeah, some construction. I mean, do you see this? China, they have I mean, they are seeing Turkey as a friend in abroad. I mean, more than their Western friends. How do you think? I mean,
China has used to,
or it's just only a strategic issue that
China used to construct many buildings, many roads, many infrastructure facilities in Africa in the last decades. And I think, as far as I read from the articles and news, they lose some confidence in the eyes of African people. And as far as we know, Turkish construction companies have a great impact on African people and African countries. So I think China tries to get advantage of Turkey in this respect.
okay, I see. That's a really good thing. So for China, I mean, China actually they have a plan for whatever is South Asia, Central Asia, Africa, and also like Eurasia, West Asia. I mean, Middle East. So it's a really great discussion. But the last one, that's what I want to ask both of you. I mean, that's what we see, the trade war, especially trade war. I mean, very specifically, if you tell like what will be the future of this trade war, I mean, for with China and USA, from both of you, if you
I don't think this is I think there will be I don't think there will be a specific answer to this question in the coming future. I think because there is no expert given as a single landmark and answer on this issue, because issue is very complicated. When we call it trade wars, many people think that this wars is just happening between those let's put that it's superpowers. But not just the situation is not like this, because it's happening between Europe and United States at the same time, and many countries has been impacted by this issue. So I don't think there will be a single answer on this issue. I think.
okay, it's true.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the U.S. Is the Trump administration actually is acting like a tradesman. So he negotiates well with the terms, economical terms actually, and I think I guess it will be better than this, and they will reach an agreement during this year, because they have to. And the economy, the global economy, is interconnected, and if there will be a war, a real trade war between the two superpowers and super economical powers of the world, they will have devastating effects for all global economies as well as China and US.
For example, American farmers are protesting, and this situation.
I mean, there's problems.
Yeah, they are protesting the president's actions, but American government, Trump administration has been projected to giving 16 billion aid to these farmers in order to break up these
protesting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so for your explanation. That's the China-America, China-Africa relation, China-Turkey relation. So dear audience, thank you for watching us, and we hope we will come to you to a new episode on the world issues, global relations, global economical issue, global historical and civilization issue. Thank you for watching our episode, The Natural Civilization at Natural TV. Thank you.